So this week, our special guest is Alana Johnson, and I know Alana quite well. And so I've asked her to join me so we can share some wonderful insight with what she does. You guys know I love sharing stuff about spirituality, woo-woo stuff, anything that's different and out there. And Alana definitely can bring a lot of that to the table. So welcome, Alana.
Hi, Jen.
And I'll just introduce Alana by, saying that she is an accredited Reiki and holistic healing in Holistic Healing Connections as well. Now, you can correct me if I say anything wrong here. So accredited Reiki, and you also do within that, you do like, I think the other day you mentioned, was it the word mediumship, or there was a word you used?
I just call it channeling, I think. Like connection and channeling would be my way I connect. So yeah, I'd say like Reiki master and meditation facilitator with a bit of channeling thrown in.
Beautiful. So let's just jump right in, and I'm going to ask you if you can remember, you don't have to go all the way back, but sort of what's brought you to this journey. What's been your journey to this journey?
It's been a lifetime journey, Jen. I think that as I've gone throughout my life, I've always been connected to spirituality. And I found it in the church at first, I'll be honest, the Catholic Church. And as I went along, I drifted away again. And then I had a big health scare where I possibly had ovarian cancer. And I felt my energy drop from being quite joyful and quite active and high vibrational, and for the first time in my life I felt myself sink right down to, I think, as low as I've ever been. And I went and saw a spiritual healer because I tried everything to bring my energy back up while holding that uncertainty and that fear. And I was just in this low vibrational space to deal with whatever could be. And I thought, this is not okay. I can't sit in this low vibrational energy and face a health scare crisis or challenge. So I went to this spiritual healer for the first time. Someone recommended it to me. And when I went in there, whatever she did on the table was the first time I experienced it. And through her meditation and the music, I felt my energy lift. And I couldn't explain it back then. It was about 5-6 years ago. And whatever she did and released, from then on, every appointment that I had with the doctors, with any interaction I had with the nurses, I started to change and shift to high vibrational. So everything was, instead of, oh no, I'm scared, what's going to be, was, good morning, how are you? How was your day? And the connection was instant. And what they did for me health-wise and healthcare kind of stepped up a notch. And with that high vibration, I went through surgery, and then they took the tumor. It was a 20-centimeter tumor. It was huge, a watermelon size. And I didn't know till I came out of surgery whether it was going to be cancer or not. And when the doctor came in the room, because we had made such a good connection through this spiritual journey that I'd gone on, this transformation of working with the energy, he burst into tears and he said, this is a professor and like a real serious oncologist. And he just said, I'm so happy for you, but you're the only one I've given good news today. And in that space, I felt I was a bigger picture of something more than just myself being in this space, if that makes sense. Like usually I used to think all me, and I could connect that the oncologist was going through something, the nurses in that space were working through something. Where did the energy have to sit or shift? And I just got goosebumps. So that was all of a sudden was this awakening, this transformation of, wow, I need to explore this. So that kind of led me into kind of like a pilgrimage and trying to seek things out to work out where did I sit within that space. Yeah,
that's incredible. I didn't know that about you. That's amazing. Incredible.
Yeah, and it was all about the energy, Jen.
Yeah.
And so my faith shifted from outer world more to energy world, if that makes sense. If you can relate to that, like that belief system mine shifted to, okay, this is more about energy and my own holding space of this energy amongst the bigger picture compared to my faith being based outside of what I believed before.
And so was that like, would you term it like that was your awakening? Did you
Absolutely.
wake up to something else greater than you? Or
It was a connection greater than me. So even though I was in the space of the hospital, so I wasn't religious as such anymore, but a lady came in and offered the Eucharist. And I saw the Eucharist, and I don't want to offend anybody, but as an energy. This person was giving a prayer of intention. So I sat with her and had a prayer with her and meditated, even though my faith wasn't lying exactly in Catholicism, but that space lifted my energy. And then when the nurse came in and told her story, and she shared why she was a nurse, and I shared that connection with her, my energy raised again. And I went down to the hospital limping at the end of my stay in hospital, bought her a beautiful crystal from down in the gift shop downstairs, and hobbled back up and took it to her, and she burst into tears. So I kind of started to see that even though I was in that hospital bed worried about myself, there's a little bit of me worried still about my family, myself. It was just bigger. My oncologist, actually, I asked him even that having this awareness, I said to him, why are you an oncologist? And he told me how he had nursed his sister through ovarian cancer for 12 years. And that's the only reason he does it, to hold her spirit and her space. So what did I do in my surgery? I prayed for her to be around me. Like just different energy shifts, just lifting. So I think it was that awakening of it within those months.
That's beautiful. And I can relate to what you're saying, because it's all about connections. I've experienced a lot of that in my life. It's a beautiful thing. It touches your heart, touches your soul. So when you were laying or sitting with this healer or woman, what do you think, in your words to describe to people, what do you think changed for you? What happened to make you, because that was a pinnacle, or would you say that was a turning point there?
Absolutely, it was what happened for me laying that table is I surrendered a little bit to my future, my unknown, do you know what I mean? And all it did, it was like I could feel the connection from somewhere else. I can't even describe where it was still, but it felt like it was connection in that moment to something else she was able to do, but then she brought me back into my body at the same time. And it kind of was like my soul said, yes, I'm here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm here, and we're here.
You.
Yes. So, and I can remember it physically and emotionally kind of joining in that space.
Wow, that's powerful. And so there's that. So most people who are doing, whether you're a doctor or a nurse, not always, some sort of healing or facilitator, whatever it is, most of them have had their own experiences, and that's why they're there. So like for you, that was obviously a big component as to what has brought you to where you are now. So I just want to go a little bit more into describing to people, and it's different for everyone, what Reiki is for you, and how it helps people, or what you're actually doing in your private sessions with people.
So I've got to go back a little bit further. I've been a primary school teacher for 20 years.
That's correct.
Active service, healing, and I never knew why I enjoyed teaching so much. And I could never put my finger on what it was that drew me to school, with this energy of just like a passion and love and just being in that space. And from that experience, I could see that I was holding space for the children to be connected and with themselves and with something else. So I was managing the energy in the room to sit highly. That's what I would say. I kept it in this space for them the whole time. And most teachers will tell you they get very depleted by the end of the day. And it's because for that 6 hours, you're trying to keep that space held highly so they can learn, and be engaged. So that kind of fell into place. Okay, that's what I was doing. But then I came to a point where I realized that Reiki was important for me, because the children were often affected. I thought it was children I wanted to be in that space of holding space for, but I realized it was the adults and the parents that were holding on to low vibrational energy, or whatever you want to call, better word for it. And it was affecting the children when they came into that space in the classroom. And then when I held the space freely, they were fine. So it was whoever they were coming in contact with was creating their energetical vibration. And so this is not happening as I'm doing it. This is talking, I realized that after I'm out of teaching. I wasn't that aware as I was doing it. And then, so for Reiki, for me, is holding space for adults or whoever wants to be in that space. Doing very similar like I did in teaching, holding that space so that people can get in touch with themselves and to source and understand their own inner wisdom. That's how I kind of see it in my space. And by having the practice tool of Reiki, I'm able to bring that connection like I experienced in the hospital, do you know what I mean, that I experienced in teaching, in a safe environment for people. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Just that we're conduits, aren't we? We're connectors. So you're also, but there's a big component which I think makes a really great facilitator, healer, whatever people want to call themselves, and that's really honing in on the intuition and the channeling. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that means for you and how you apply that and how you receive it? Because it's easier than what people think. We just make it really hard.
Okay, so firstly, I think what I learned from my Reiki journey is learning through Reiki. It's different modalities you can learn from, but what I found from it was 3 words kept coming up for me. Clarity. It gave me clarity to sit in that space of connection. Connection needed to be there. And it gave me consciousness. So I think those 3 words, clarity, connection, and consciousness, are my kind of words that I sit within that space. And I practice daily. And if I practice those and allow that to happen, the channeling occurs. So my whole life I've channeled. I channeled my husband when I was 8. I dreamed him out the window of my house, and I just had this deep feeling that my partner was going to be from across the seas. And I heard this voice say, call him over. And I sang this beautiful, I'm mad, beautiful song to the universe to bring my partner to Australia. And that's what happened. I've married someone who's from England. He's over there now in the Cotswolds, seeing his family. Or there'll be moments in time where I heard things. I'm clairaudient, so I could hear things distinctly. And it wasn't until I got a bit older that I actually acted upon those, that guidance. And the more I practiced it, when I heard it, and for me, it sounds like a voice that's not my own. It sounds more like a dropped thought into my head, and a real clarity and kind of a strength to it compared to my usual daydreaming. Like, it's really like, this is what it is. Here it is. So for me, when I hear it, it's really solid and very clear and like very clear. It's not waffly at all. It's like, this is it. Here it is. Drop. So I started trusting in that more, Jen, and I started to keep practicing it and letting it guide me a bit more. And I could see what I was receiving from each time I practiced it. One distinct moment in my 30s was we were having a family car trip up to a coastal town through mountains, and it was raining and pouring. And my husband was going a little bit too fast. Not a lot, just 5 kilometers over the limit. And I kept hearing this voice, he needs to slow down. And at first he doesn't like to be told how to drive. So I ignored it. And then it was like, you tell him to slow down. And I was like, tell him to slow down. So I don't know where it came. Well, I do now, but I didn't back then. And I turned to him and said, I don't know where I'm getting it from. You need to go slower. Drop your speed. And he did. And as soon as he did, we went around this bend. His car came around and did a hairspin turn, came out of control, 360, missed us by this much, and went off the embankment. And we had to help him. And he was in shock.
Wow.
But if it was like this much, now if I didn't have that surrender, that trust in that channeling, I think we would have been in that accident. So those examples started to happen to me a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like this clear wisdom dropping in. And even my husband will say that the only way that we came through in that accident in a better space was through that, me saying to him, stop, like firmly. So I think I just practice that now. A lot of my channeling in my space with the Reiki studio, I channel an hour before people come. I connect to them, connect to source, whatever you want to believe. And then I'm such a clear space where I meditated for 20 minutes that just information just drops. Like I really would say it drops in from my crown chakra, I'll be honest. It doesn't come from the sides. It comes from down and it just drops I can kind of picture it in my head dropping in the space of my brain that goes. And I just start channeling. I do a lot of automatic writing with my channeling and just hear it, write it, hear it, write it. And to this day, it feels really strong and connected and high vibrational. So it comes in. But I can't really describe it any better than that, more like just a drop down from information.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible. I love hearing the different ways people work with their own system, if you want to call it a system.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see. I'm just having a look at some things I've written down because I want to make sure I cover everything. You also do circles besides the weekly ones. You do, I think it's quarterly or the full moon or coming up. So do you want to talk a little bit about what your intention is there, and you know what's the purpose and what you sort of achieve or the people achieve there? Like, I know I've attended one of them, but
yeah. Well, no, the Wednesday circles I run for the meditation group is mainly partly for myself as well. So that's more like a healing space for me and whoever comes, that we sit in just divine energy and we just want to connect and kind of touch base with ourselves. And it's a gentle touching of base, setting us back up for the week, pulling our energy back up to high vibration. So that's I call it a casual circle. The new moon circles I hold once a month online and in person came to me because I started to realize how connected I was to the cycles of the world, of the universe. So I was finding that my energy was depleting at certain times of the month, picking back up again. I was starting to see the patterns of when I was receiving throughout the month more than creating. So I started to have this awareness of what I was experiencing. And then I talked to other healers, to be honest, and some good friends, and they'd say, oh, that's because the moon's in this cycle. I go, oh, I'm not sure about that, a little bit skeptical of that. And I started to look into it a lot more. And I still sit in two things. It is, even if I don't 100% want to go into astrology, I still love the flow of having a cycle to check in with yourself, create, create, reflect, create again. Like, I love that cycle, even if you don't do about astrology. So it kind of keeps me on a guidance system for myself, a compass. How am I going? What do I want to do? And so I hold those circles of three things. I found that by connecting to other women, there's transformation within yourself. The energy of other women or even men in circle, it's quite powerful. And then the other thing is I think I worked out through my healing that you have to take the darkness with the light. And I don't mean heavily dark or heavily light, but you just have to have acceptance around, like, the energy flows of creating and reflecting. There's shadows and there's joy. There's shadows and there's joy. And the more I accepted it, the more I healed. So I kind of just want to offer that for people to experience, just to sit in that space, connect with themselves, and get in touch with a few cycles around them. And that might be happening to other women in the circle, because often we find that we sit together and whatever we're going through has a similar theme that we're experiencing together. So I think there's empowerment in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially, it's a bit cliche to say, but those like-minded people, and we bounce off each other, and we're all in different places, so they can see things that we can't see within ourselves. They're being quite objective, which I love that. That's always fun too.
Yeah. And I often just hear like one phrase somebody else says, and that's the healing that I needed for myself that moment. And I think, wow, that person just nailed it and said exactly what my heart was speaking to me and that I need to hear. And if you don't give yourself the space and the self-love and self-care to go into those spaces, life's too busy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes to have those moments. And the other thing, I created the new moon when I have a guest speaker on the end of them for the last 40 minutes. And that's because I believe in being discerning. I believe in being discerning. I believe in being question things, finding your own truth. And by holding a guest speaker that's different to me at the end of the circle, it allows people to see different ways of practices. And therefore you can discern which is more to your truth and what you feel resonates with you. And I kind of love that power in hearing from other people that are doing a different modality or a different way, like you say, of channeling or sitting in source or healing. So that's why I brought the guest speakers in. That's probably my favorite part of the circle is hearing.
And so when you're doing Reiki, for example, can you, and if you can't at the moment, that's okay, but can you think of something that's come up that's quite amazing or powerful, an experience you had or have had with a client from the past?
Oh, there's so many. Every session I step more in towards my faith into the practice that I do, if that makes sense, because I am so surrendering to the moment with the client or the person holding space for, that we connect so well that there's something that is lifting me again, and kind of opening my world as well. Mainly I have found that past lives, and ancestral healing really are the ones that have really, well, you say woohoo moments, but really opened my eyes to how deep our healing sometimes needs to go to be able to have that sense of freedom and joy that we so want. And this life is only a small snippet of our growth, if that makes sense. So, for example, I held a lady who went back into a past life regression, and probably one of the biggest things, what she was experiencing, she could see herself walking along the road, but as she was doing it, I could see I was following her. And she's quite a leader within the healing community. And I had a little giggle to myself because I don't always want to be at the front, but I'm more than happy to be second or third, supporting somebody else. But when she went into this, she was really clear that she was in the front fighting for what she was believing in this past life. And I was kind of in the background. And I just thought, wow, I'm stepping into her past life with her. And I could feel we were connected in a past life, if that makes sense. I went, oh, you're here because we were connected.
Yeah.
And it was very vivid. Other ones, there's been a beautiful one where I had a mother and a daughter mother was very skeptical, but the daughter wanted the healing. And so I said to the mother, I would love, if you're open to it, I'd love you to lay down and experience it at the same time she is. I'll concentrate on her, but you'll be experiencing similar energy work as well, because I put the attention out for that. And we did this beautiful meditation. And I changed it a bit differently for children, but as I did the Reiki healing, the mum could feel where I was healing in the daughter's energy that needed in her own body. And sometimes for children, it's a bit more painful than adults. It's a bit more intense because they're so open. So the little girl was going, oh, it's in my heart. Oh my, like I can feel it. And I said, do you want me to stop? She goes, no, it needs to go. And so I released it. But the mum was crying because her heart was aching the same time her daughter's heart was. And it actually was to do with clearing this life amongst the two of them. And when I just got goosebumps. When I released it, they actually had the release, even though I had no hands on the mother at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like they could feel it lift for their body. And they even saw the meditation, the same dragon without it being spoken that came into their vision. So little things like that happen quite a lot in studio. Lots of little synchronicities and connection.
Yeah. Keeps it fun and interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's always fun because you don't know what you're going to receive. And that's where I think that's the part I love. We stand in a place of we know so much to a degree, but you never fully know. And I love that part of you don't know. And that's the part that's always the fun and fascinating, because you don't know what you don't know, what's coming. And that's exciting. Yeah.
And I'll be the first to stay in my studio. There's been often a time where I see a guide or I see somebody come to support the person on the table that I don't recognize. Do you know what I mean? Like there's often an image or a vision I get of a guide that I will have to speak vulnerably and say, look, this is what this person looks like. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, that's my guide. It's blah, blah, blah. But I have never seen that guide before. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't recognize it. It's not in my space.
Yeah.
And I find that's quite interesting when you have to speak what you're seeing, even though you don't recognize something.
Yes.
And you just got to trust in it to
Yes.
say what you're seeing. And that's part of my healing, was getting used to saying that.
I'm still getting used to it. Every time I receive, I always go, really? I don't know if this is accurate or inaccurate, because it just feels like it's pretty ordinary. Even though some of it's fascinating, it feels like it just doesn't feel like a kapow. So
yes.
I can relate. Yeah, I get it. And you got to trust, and you put your head on the chopping block every time. And it's always so cool when people come back and say, yeah, no, that was pretty accurate. And you're like, oh, that's interesting, because you're just the receiver. It's a weird experience.
Yeah. And not to know things. So it sounds really, the scope of how much there is to know is unfathomable. So the amount that we don't know. So when it does drop in, now I'm not really shocked anymore. But at first I thought I had all the guides worked out, and, you know, and then as I've gone along, I'm like, no chance. Don't know any of it. So for me, it's that trust, just to keep working with it.
Yeah. I think that's the best part of the ride, to be honest. That's where the fun is.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm just going to go into a little bit more. What is the soul? Because it's different for everyone, if you want to call it soul. You know, I'm soul whisperer myself. I connect with people's souls and their hearts. But, you know, different people use different words, but I'm going to use the word soul. You could use soul or higher self or God or goddess or whatever you want to call it. What does the soul mean to you?
That's a good question. I just think I've always recognized my soul. That sounds really simple.
I can relate to that. Yeah.
I've just always known the existence of my soul and connected with it in a way since I was a child. I just knew that it was just, I can even feel where it is majority of the time. Do you know what I mean? Like it sits within me. And for me, it's just that energy that's come from somewhere else. I'll be honest. It's another energy system, but made up of all the past lives, you know, that I've been on before, the journeys I've been on before, and all the energy I've experienced before. Like I feel like it's a collection of connection. Like I really do. Yeah. So I often feel that's why sometimes my soul can feel expansive due to who I've connected or been around, and not, you know, shrunk sometimes too. So it kind of moves with the connection that I have in life all the time. So if it's a tree, do you know what I mean? I can feel it expand. Like I can touch this leaf. I can feel it expand. So it's like a working energy. That's how I would describe it. A working energy system that holds a whole lot of wisdom and, you know, collective memory. That's probably the best I could describe it.
I love that statement you just made. A working energy. Can't remember the bit in between. With a
collective energy. I think it's a working energy with a collective memory.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's the perfect words to describe it. Yeah, definitely. Beautiful. All right. So let me see before we finish up. Just thinking about what else I want to pull from you. I like the part where you said, you know, being a teacher, you were holding space and you didn't know it. You were doing it naturally. And again, I can relate to that because the stuff I do now, I've been doing it in dribs and drabs in the past, but not being aware of it to the degree. Now it's more on purpose with focus. It's different. Now this is a funny question, this one. Some people ask me this, and some people are born with so-called gifts. We're all born with gifts, but some people are born, they hit the ground running, if you want to call that a gift, where they've they're gifted with it at a young age and they're really quite aware and they're running with it, regardless of what it is. Now, I know that anyone can achieve anything. We have access to everything. We can all do this. We can all do whatever we want. We just need to focus. But to ask you personally, looking back, seeing that what you're doing now, you were sort of doing it back then, and even back to your childhood, maybe if it was there, do you feel that you were born with something, an extra sensitivity or an extra awareness, or if you would call it a gift? Or because my so-called, I wouldn't call mine a gift. I would say it was just something there, and I've just become aware of it and worked on it to create it. So, and it's whatever it is for you. But can you look back and see that you were born with this, or it was something you cultivated, or how would you describe it?
I don't call it a gift at all. I would say the same as you. I call it that I think we're all made up very similarly. It's just that we are able to connect to it more. I feel like I hit the ground running. I do feel like you would say that. I would say that from an early age, I was aware of this consciousness. Like,
Yeah.
I just I could tell a story that it was beautiful. I posted on Instagram that I had this, when I was younger, I had a street full of kids, and I was one of the oldest one. And my favorite thing to do with these kids was round them all up and sit them in a circle, paint their face with a rock and make them chant, and do rain dances and sing with them. That's my favorite. And I'd rattle shakers and crazy things like that all the time from like a really young age, because most likely in past life, I haven't explored that one, but I'd say there'd be a past life there that would be something that I did as a healer. And I just thought it was so normal. Like, it was only till the parents kept saying, Alana, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's that game you're playing? Do you know what I mean? That's an unusual game. So I did things like that, and I just always have been. I just remember all those moments, and like, I will even say that I sat when I was 10 and my parents were, not religious at all. And I turned to them and I said, I understand you. I was about 9. I said, I understand you don't want to go to church and you don't want to experience it, but I need you to go around and take me to all the churches so I can find some space for myself. And I was about 9 or 10, and they looked at me and went, what? So my mum took me church to church until I felt a comfortable space where I could connect. Do you know what I mean? And she let me be in that space. Week on, she went, and she's ended up an atheist, to be honest, into that space so I could have connection.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I had to speak up at 9, like, really young age, to say, I get that you don't, but I do. And so all throughout my life, that's been the kind of the pattern. Like, I ran youth groups. I was a Catholic school teacher, so I ran the prayers in the morning for Catholics. Like, everything was just little bits by little bit of wanting that connection I knew was there, I would say. And like you say, I was practicing it, and I was practicing it with intention, but I wasn't practicing it daily.
Right.
And I think that was my biggest shift, that it went from a sporadic practice where I yearned for it and would go and search for it, to it just becoming part of my life. That I wake up, I connect, I sit in this space, I raise my energy, and then I go about my day.
You just
I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah, you just answered the next question. I was just about to say, wrapping up, I was going to ask you, what's your daily rituals? Do you have daily rituals or behaviors that keep you in alignment, that keep you feeling good? Because people underestimate feeling good, and they often want to do things externally, like, oh, nothing wrong with drinking some alcohol, but I'll do this, or I'll have that, or I'll go do this to make myself feel better, which can be helpful. But if you keep that bank full as often as you can, giving back to you and finding ways throughout your day to fill you up, to keep you in that alignment, that's going to serve an individual more than if they wait till the tank's empty and then they're racing to just grab everything from the outside. So you sort of said it a little bit, but I'll just ask you to express it again. So what are your daily behaviors or rituals you do that keep you in alignment, keep you feeling good?
Gotta be honest, I'm pretty practical because I do know the limits of my willpower. And I wouldn't say I would be good in, you know, a strict setting, because I do waver with my ability to stay completely conscious all the time. So, but my daily practice would be like in the morning I get up, and I'm not a big person for media, so I'll be honest about that. I do drabs and drips of it. But so the first thing I do is, if I have a shower, I've got this beautiful bush backdrop. And I'm very blessed. I have a window that's a whole room length that looks out onto bush and like rainforest. So I start my day with a shower and I connect. I can do it now just straight away and I can feel it. I connect in and I ground myself to everything around me. So the trees, I imagine myself going into the creek that runs down the back, and I kind of flow down with the creek for a while. I kind of visit my dog and give him a little bit of love. Do you know what I mean? I visit the insects that scurry around my backyard. It sounds a little bit silly in some sense, but like I connect to the plants in my garden and imagine myself being with them. And then once I've connected to all kind of living things and grounded myself, I then bring my energy up to source, because I kind of need that grounding. Can get a bit lightheaded, so I need that grounding first. And sometimes it travels. Actually, I was gonna say, sometimes my grounding, my roots kind of travel a long distance. Other times they're just happy to sit in my own backyard, you know? So it depends on the day. And then I go up to source and I kind of just say, just protect me and give me the highest good messages throughout the day that I need to begin my day. And then I send white energy for protection around my whole family and friends. And then wrap it even my dog, I give a little bubble of beautiful white energy to travel his day. And then I put it around myself. And I always start the day like that. And I just find I get out of the and then I imagine all my worries washing into the drain, and I step out of the shower and I feel like I'm shining. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine like a sparkling star. I feel like I come out like that. And I will say though that, like you, I can't have caffeine when I'm holding space for people. It brings my energy down. I can't drink alcohol. If I could do it on a holiday, if I've planned a holiday and I'm breaking from doing any holding space for anybody. But if I'm holding space for somebody, I can't drink alcohol. I can't have caffeine for myself. I don't know, other people can do it. Meat, same thing. Really got to really limit the meat and have a little bit, but not a lot. So what I do eat and consume also does affect me. And same with the media. It can bring my energy really low. So if I'm not conscious and I don't practice it daily, I kind of feel myself start to slip. That was the biggest thing I'll say, Jen. When I first started out, and I had this awareness each time I healed that I couldn't have caffeine or alcohol, and I used to drink it and have 2 coffees a day. And I actually did a meditation, and everyone laughed at me, where I grieved having junk food and alcohol and caffeine, because I'm so human. I love the smell of coffee. Do you know what I mean? And that was one of my release practices. I really had to work months on releasing this niche of holding on to those. And all the healers were laughing around me, but it took me a few months to really allow that to go. Do you know what I mean? And I do, any of that comes in, I know that my vibration drops. So become aware of that.
I would agree with that. Certain things I can't do. They will lower my vibration. And definitely, like the things you're saying, and it's different for everybody. Everybody's got to find their own, what works for them. Because I remember, studying or early on looking at so many things with spirituality, and there was all these rules, and I just thought, okay, don't do this and don't do that and don't do that. And I thought, okay, and I didn't really sort of take it on board, but I didn't dismiss it either. And then I came to realize there were people out there that were channeling, or they were great mediums, or they were doing amazing work, who were doing things like drinking alcohol or eating meat. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So it's different for everyone. You just got to find, what's right for you, because it is a funny journey. Like I tend to find spirituality, there is a lot of rules out there, and I laugh at a lot of them now. I just think, that's a human generated, sort of imposing, it's a made up thing that some human has decided that's how it really is, and that's what you're supposed to do. So, I just think you can look at things like guidelines, but you've got to find your own truth for what works for you, because we all do have our own soul or inner being. And if we listen to it, we'll find out what works for us. So now, just before we finish, and I'm going to ask you, and I think I have some of your links anyway, but I'm going to put some of your links in here. But so you do Reiki from home. And do you want to describe to people, like, the services you offer? So do you also do remote or distance?
Yeah.
Okay.
My main thing is I have a healing studio. Can I just add before I go into that, how you said about the rules? I have to just add this in, and I'm very clearly getting told this. It doesn't mean I don't drink.
Yeah.
It just means that I'm human. I love my human life. I've got the best human life. It just means that I'm conscious that if I do and it's raising my energy down,
yes,
I'm not sticking steadfast to it, that I wouldn't hold space for somebody the next day or in those few days till I felt my energy pick back up again.
Yeah.
So when you say about those hard and fast rules, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just about is my soul expanding to a space to hold space for somebody or not? And they're my monitors. I just know that they're my triggers that lower it. That's all I'm saying. But I'm with you. But it's more that accountability that if you feel your energy lowering, you shouldn't be holding space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. It affects your performance. I agree. Yeah.
So no, I have a Reiki studio just downstairs, and I hold do emotional liberations, which are more this lifetime, where you're trying to bring to the surface parts of your body that might be holding some emotions from past experiences and past trauma, that you can have a beautiful meditation around and not sit within the trauma too long. Just touch onto the trauma and see it, and then move through it to a different space. And I do past life healings. Well, not even healings, past life regression, so that you can have an awareness in yourself where sometimes some things have come from. And then I just do beautiful, which is one of my favorite, simple Reiki, where you just allow yourself to connect to your body, mind, and spirit, and just sit in that space. And then my other thing I do is I just hold meditation circles for anybody who is interested. They're welcome to come.
Beautiful.
Beautiful people there, aren't they, Jen?
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so I'm feeling, but for you, and we had this conversation, there's something else coming for you down the track. So I think you'll be expanding and doing more. So is there anything you wanted to say for the people who are watching this before we finish? Anything you want to share, or a message before we finish up?
Just stay to your own truth. Like, I just think that the biggest, by giving yourself self-love and the space to have self-care and connecting to yourself, be discerning with anything that comes across your path, and just sit with your own truth, and just be in that space.
Beautiful.
And surround yourself with good people. That's what the circles are for. Yeah,
definitely. Well, thank you for the chat. It's been lovely talking with you, and we might jump in another time. So I appreciate your time today, and I hope everybody enjoys this and shares it around. And if you want to reach out to Alana, I will put links in there. She does do wonderful work. So big soul love from me. Bye for now.